Yeah. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, it's clear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Jia Shaohan Shishini Yakinpo. This is a tribute to Professor Zeng Zhao Feng. I would like to reminisce about an iconic sedimentologist in China. The year was 2013. I just published a paper, a review paper, on modern internal waves and internal tides along oceanic intervals. Geologists don't pay attention to these things. This is a very rare oceanographic phenomenon. So after I published, I was curious, who else is publishing on this topic? Then I came across a paper by Gao, Pei, and Dua. It was 2013. The title was the Review of Research in Internal Wave and Internal Tide of China. I was shocked because very few geologists really pay attention to these things. And this one actually talks about the rocks. So I was very curious about this paper. I read the paper, I liked the paper. I also had comments on the paper. So what is published? Journal of Paleogeography. But the journal just started in 2012. I looked at the issues, there are 3 papers. They didn't publish any discussion and reply. I know what to do. So I put it to the journal office, asking, can I write a discussion? And I got a very prompt reply from the editor, Dr. Yuan Wang. Yes, we want you to write a discussion. We encourage you to write a discussion. Then I wrote a discussion that was published in 2015-14. That is the beginning of my relationship with the Journal of Paleogeography. Then, at the same time, I had a manuscript on the landslide problem. I was going to submit to another international journal. Then I read the description of paleogeography. It just correctly to the Journal of Paleogeography. So I submitted, it got reviewed, and it was published. Normally what I do when I publish a paper, I share the publication with select professors, researchers all over the world. And one of them was Professor Paul Potter, and he was a professor at University of Cincinnati. And if you don't know who Paul Potter was, he was the second author in the book on sand and sandstone. It was written by Petroleum, Potter, and Seward. It was a very well-known book. It was almost a text in a lot of colleges and universities. So I got a letter from Paul Potter, this one, handwritten letter. You can't read it, so I'll transcribe for you. Says, hello, Sean. Thank you so much for an absolutely great set that is a reprint. You are the first to publish an integrated discussion of landslides from those on lands, river banks, and stream valleys to deep basins. And so, didactic and easy to understand, just great. Congratulations. Paul Potter, Department of Geology, University of Cincinnati. So I was very pleased. I thought maybe I should share this letter with Professor Feng. He was the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Paleogeography. I don't know anything about Professor Feng, I just saw the name. So I sent him that letter to him. And I got this very long email from him. And I'll just highlight the one on the yellow. You can't read it, so I'll show you a better slide here. It says, I'm attaching you a group photo with Professor Pettyjohn and his wife, which was taken in August 1982 when I attended the 11th International Sedimentological Congress in Hamilton, in Canada, from left, right, and so on. He chose the graphic. The one on the left is Professor Pettyjohn's wife, then Professor Feng, and Professor Pettyjohn, and so on. Then I realized Professor Feng was a great admirer of Pettyjohn's father, and he used the textbook in his courses. So I didn't know all this. Only after sending that letter to him, I came up with this information about his admiration of Professor Pettyjohn. The next thing what happened, within a couple of days, I got this huge international airmail package of 2 volumes. It is Sedimentology of China. The chief editor was Professor Feng. I could not believe such a volume existed, so I opened it. It's all in Chinese, but each major portions, like the abstract, summary, figure caption, so on, they're all in English. So I could easily follow what's in the book. So as you can see, it's 1782 pages. I went through the entire 2 volumes. I was so impressed. So I wrote a very nice complimentary email to him. And then I got this big email from him. I'll just highlight the yellow thing because that's so information. I published this in the Journal of Paleogeography, so you can read the details there. Anyway, the thing he said was, I regard you as my bosom friend. From the passionate letter. This is having a bosom friend outside my hometown and regarding each other just as neighbors. There is a famous Chinese proverb, meeting a bosom friend in high mountains and flowing water. This is where our relationship started. He immediately appointed me as a JOP editor member, and he encouraged me to publish review articles in JOP on submarine fans, size mines, soft sediment deformation structures, hyperpigments, cost in China, and so on. After that happened, I saw a major change in our relationship. He would treat me as a younger brother. He would tell me what to do, what not to do, how to say things. It's almost an unbelievable relationship we had. His philosophy, the JOP philosophy, the Journal of Paleogeography philosophy, like Professor Feng, the 100 flowers philosophy, and the 100 schools of the. This is exactly my philosophy. So we matched very well in the publishing business after this Paul Potter letter came. Then the first major article was on submarine fans after the landslide. The reason it started was there are others. The title was 3D Paleogeographic Reconstruction. I read that paper. It was very fascinating. Yeah? But they also talk about submarine fans. They got everything wrong. Because I've been doing research on submarine fans for about 30 years. Some of the things it was so upsetting. So I contacted Professor Feng. There are so many wrong things in this paper. I must write a discussion. And he said, go for it. So I pointed out, world's largest submarine fan is Gulf. They extend almost to the entire length of Incompleted Summit. They never mentioned this in their paper by Veran and others. So I pointed out all this, and there are so many types of submarine fans all over the world, and they never bothered to talk about them. So I did all that. I wrote a discussion, submitted, and the associate editor-in-chief who reviewed my discussion, he said there is so many interesting, useful information in this discussion. So I should write the entire paper on submarine fan just for the Journal of Paleogeography. So immediately I got a major letter from Prof. I should write a paper on submarine fan. And I did. I went through the entire history, starting Obama sequence, Professor T, and what he did in something normal. So it's a very extensive research and review paper. When we published it, immediately it ranked #1 in Google download section. I could not believe thousands of people were downloading this paper. Then Professor Feng said in an email to me, this is a masterpiece. And he also, what he did was at that time, there was a limitation on page numbers. And he relaxed the limitation. The paper was 74 pages long. And he was so excited, he wrote an editorial calling my paper a state-of-the-art academic paper. It's published in the Journal of Paleogeography. And just this year, the China National Knowledge Infrastructure recognized this paper as one of the top 1% most highly cited publications. This is a big deal because in Journal of Paleogeography, since the 2012, this is the only paper selected by CNKI to be inducted into the archives of their publications and so on. This is based on 10 years of publication from 2012 to 2022. So this is a big deal. I wish Professor Feng is alive today to see what he suggested that I write. Then he wanted me to write a paper on seismic rock. I said, I'm not an expert on seismics. I'm a deep water sedimentologist person. He sent me an email, simply said, learn it and write. So I learned and I wrote. And it was published. And he liked the paper so much, he translated the paper with LKB and Min Liu, and they gave it in a conference in China. So because of the relationship we developed, we also developed the policy for JOPR to make JOP #1 in the world. We must publish review articles. That's where people pay attention. You can write a phases analysis of a formation in northern China with very long details and so on. That people will be interested. But when you write a review paper on some landslides, submarine fans, seismics, it gets a lot more attention. So I wrote and published one review paper per year. These are the 8 papers. And these are not just regular review papers. They are very long papers. The submarine fans, 74 printed pages long. The one recently, 95 printed pages long. The reason you don't see this kind of review papers because they take so much time, energy, effort. But Professor Feng knew exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to write review articles, publish review articles in JOP. So if you see these review articles in JOP, it is not an accident. It was a policy designed by Professor Feng. And because of that, one of the papers I published got very high citations in the Web of Science. So JOP, Professor Feng gave me a special prize recognizing these articles. So to just summarize my history on publications, I started out as a student. When I worked for a mobile company, I published a lot, retired. When I joined JOP, publication really took off because of writing those review articles. I have over 380 publications today. The one regret take is he wanted me to write a review article on the cost in China. I did study cost in China. I went there in 1987 and I published a paper in the APG in 1988. This is published on the cover. There is a boiling cost. And I published other papers. There's a major chapter in the Petroleum volume published by Prof. The entire chapter is about unconformities, cost, and porosity, and so on. APG, also the bulletin paper.
Professor Shan,
你看这翻译的，是这里的问题。
这里只是那个卡了，是网上没事。对，
我们这个翻译
那个卡了。
He is in the center of the planet,
我好像是你的电脑的问题。
the knowledge,
我
not
你现在
only
没
in
打。
China, but to the entire world. And some of the topics he covers,
上面那个
carbon sedimentology, paleogeography, fishes concept, advances in abroad. He was reading all journals abroad, and he would translate into Chinese for the Chinese consumption. Deep water gravity pulls, size spikes, soft sediment deformation fractures, and so on. So when you publish a paper, they have a distinct mark of Professor Feng. You can see immediately from the coordinates exactly where the map is coming. You'll see the lithophages color so distinct, you don't have to look for the legend. And the age of the formation, the aesthetics, some of the clarity he put into those maps, so wonderful. It should be a learning example for all the students. So that's what I liked. And also, he was very serious about the reviewers who each paper of his is reviewed. In this case, he selected Professor Stephen Kershaw, myself, Ian Somerville, and the Chinese Professor Chen. These first three are the associate editors-in-chief of JOP. He could have selected anybody he wanted. He was the editor-in-chief. But he chose to select the associate editors to show how serious he was in his publications. So, one of the things he said was, this is the paper by Professor Feng, some new thoughts of definitions of terms of sedimentary phases. The reason I'm putting this here is, this is based on a paper of Andrew Vidal, published in 1985. Since published 37 years ago, he's still addressing those basic concepts so that people can understand what's going on in the sedimentary geology. So, when you think about it, he launched Journal of Paleogeography, the English edition, and the impact score of the paper is very high considering it was only 10 years since it's published. And comparing that to AAPG Bulletin, that has been in business for 105 years. So he was very serious about the impact of the journals into the public. He was the editor-in-chief, and there are 7 associate editors, and there are 43 members, just regular members of the editorial committee, and they are coming from 15 countries. So he was very serious about the journal he was editing about. This was the lecture he gave at the commence of the International Society of Paleogeography. This was his dream, and this is the time. He was so aggressive in getting this society launched, and that was the last public appearance of Professor Feng. And to show some of the publications by Professor Feng, this is the pie chart. There are 100 first author articles, and there are 36 non-first author, and 14 monographs. So much is part of these publications. It's so impressive. So to look at his publication history, he started off low and then went through lecturer and associate professor. Then he became the editor. And as you can see, it's going very steep, 170 publications. And he was editing even just a few months before he passed away. This was in November 30, 2022. I submitted a review, book review, and he edited that. It was impressive to see how much effort he put into the Journal of Paleogeography. To summarize, what the iconic sedimentologist in China he was an author, he was an editor, he was an educator, he was a global geoscientist, he was an innovator, initiator, map maker, mentor, organizer, philosopher, pioneer, researcher, sedimentologist, translator. Above all, he was a great human being. Quen Yu Hui Tong Shen, Kui Mian Hui, Feng Sheng Shao, Jia Wo Shou, Kushi, Dunya, Eli Shai Shen, Jigu, Kegu, Dili, Kuli, Yude Tushu, Gangxia. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the late Professor Feng, Dr. Yuan Wang, Dr. Xu Fan Hu, Dr. Min Liu. And these 3 are some of the most hardworking editors in the world. So I have a great respect for them. And without them, the journal would not function. 谢谢你。
Thank you, Professor Shan. Thank you for your very much touched and emotional tribute to Professor Feng with so many details and valuable pictures. Thank you so much for everything you have prepared for this activity in memorizing Professor Feng.